Canadian universities are working hard to attract kids, specifically girls, into the sciences. Fields like engineering. Jennifer Flanagan is with us, CEO of Actua, and is with us now. Good afternoon, Jennifer. How are you today?
I'm great, Scott. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for taking the time to join us. Appreciate this.
My pleasure.
Why don't we see more girls going into courses like engineering?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons, but from our experience engaging both girls and boys across the country in science and engineering programs, girls often still don't recognize that science and engineering are fields or topics that they would be interested in, or where they might potentially study or have careers in the future. So we see it early on. We're seeing that they're still identifying a lack of role model, and some of those stereotypes that we've all heard about scientists or engineers and what they do, they're still very prevalent. And for girls, that has an especially strong impact.
Are they not interested, or is it the fact that it's an old boys club? Not to bring up stereotypes and such, but eventually that's what's going to get asked here.
Absolutely. So the answer to your first question, are they interested? Absolutely, they're interested. They are as interested as boys are, and we see that hunger and appetite and interest level being very, very high when they're younger, so in elementary and junior high school, and then things start to kind of dip off for girls. There is a lack of role models, so to go to your question on old boys clubs, a lot of what kids see when they look at scientists or engineers, and certainly computer scientists are men. So that's one of the things that we're trying to change. We're trying to bring really inspiring female role models together with girls so that they can get a different picture of what is possible and what really does exist. There are tons of amazing women engineers and scientists, as you know. We just need to bring them face-to-face with girls so that they can start to imagine themselves in those fields in the future.
How long before we see the day when we'll see an equal split of 50-50 in any given class?
That's a great question. There's lots of that happening now. So there are fields of science and engineering where we've been working, organizations like Actua and many others, for years on this topic, and there are 50-50 in things like biology and chemistry, and in some engineering disciplines, biomedical, chemistry, chemical engineering. So I think we're getting there, and universities are setting more aggressive targets to get these numbers up, and investing in programs like Actua at a young age to make sure we have that really great pipeline of girls coming up. So I think that it's not in the too distant future. However, it's a problem a long time in the making, so I think we still need to be patient, that it's going to take a while to get to that level where we need to be, the 50%.
Is this about changing attitudes when kids are small and in primary school, or is this about changing the attitudes at the university level?
It's both. So we have to start at elementary school, because we know that kids make decisions about what it is or is not for them very early on in terms of what they would do in the future, especially girls. So we need to start young. We need to get them engaged in programs like Actua's. In Hamilton, we have a member there called Venture Engineering and Science that does amazing hands-on science and engineering camps, and they have all-girl clubs and camps as well. So we get them engaged early, and then we keep them engaged through high school to make sure that they're staying in those science and math courses, and that they understand what opportunities exist in the future. There's also a piece here around parents and making sure that parents are aware of the need to engage and encourage their girls, and there's a big role for organizations like Actua also to play there, to make parents aware of the important role that they play.
That was my next question. I mean, what is the parents' role, and can they be perhaps providing a stereotype they're not even aware of? I mean, we're seeing the same thing happen with educators trying to get kids involved into even skilled trades, that the parents are pushing them away from that. So what is the role of the parent here?
The role of the parent is still very significant. So they are, if not, the most important influencer of what courses kids are going to take in high school, and as well certainly future post-secondary study and career. So getting to the parents and making sure that the parents are aware of maybe some of those unconscious biases, as you said, things that they're doing that are not with full intention, but just unconsciously discouraging their girls from pursuing these fields. So making them aware of those things, and also of the amazing opportunities that exist in science and engineering, things that they might not have considered for their daughters in the past.
Do girls generally do better in math in elementary school than boys do?
I think that the achievement levels are pretty equal.
Are they equal? Okay. I remember being a little kid, and I'm like 50 years old now, and watching my cousin graduate from the Ontario Police College, and I remember it was a big deal whenever we saw a policewoman in the crowd, of which was endless rows of men. Fast forward, I remember seeing a buddy graduate maybe, 15, 20 years ago, and over half the class was female.
Mm-hmm.
Do you expect to see that dramatic a change in a short period of time?
I'm not sure that, I think that the numbers are increasing steadily, and I think that there are many initiatives in place to make sure that that continues to happen. And again, I think universities are going to start setting more and more aggressive targets to get to those numbers quicker. So I think there is going to be a day in the not too distant future where it's not going to be out of the ordinary to see an equal number of women and men, and there's not going to be that kind of shock factor if you see a woman cross the stage.
Actua, what is that all about? What's the objective here? What's the role? What's your role here?
So we're a national STEM outreach organization. So we engage youth in science, technology, engineering, and math programs. We do that through a network of 33 organizations located at universities across the country. So those organizations, like the one I mentioned at McMaster in Hamilton called Venture, are in the community delivering hands-on, inspiring educational programs that get kids excited about science. So things like they're in schools doing workshops, helping teachers teach science, and through the summer months offer summer camps that any child can go to. We engage about 225,000 kids in 500 communities across the country in these types of initiatives. And just as we've been talking about, really making sure the kids keep those doors open, that they understand how science and engineering impacts their day-to-day lives. So this isn't just about getting more scientists and engineers in the future. This is about the fact that scientific and technical literacy is really so critical regardless of what field they choose to pursue in the future.
Have you seen the fruits of your labor? I mean, obviously that's the way to do it. Start young. Are you starting to see that as they get older?
Absolutely. We're seeing their confidence levels increase. We're seeing that their levels of enjoyment and interest is increasing in these fields, and we know that those are the best indicators of future behavior. So we see that happening both in their response and how their teachers and parents are responding, and certainly we're seeing that in some of the numbers as they start to get into those university levels.
Some programs have just one gender, so it's just all girls. Is it better to have that scenario to start this off, or even at the university level?
We have found that from our research at Actua-based programs that many girls really prefer an all-girl environment for science and engineering camps. We offer both, so girls can choose and their parents can choose. But what we see is that girls get into all-girl environments and they feel more comfortable. They feel like they can experiment and fail and try things out in maybe a way that's a little bit less risky for them, and in a way that they feel more free to do that. So definitely what we're hearing from the girls, which is who we take our cues from, they really enjoy an all-girl environment. And I do think that they're effective to get girls engaged in a way that's a little less threatening.
Would a boys' class be any different? Actually, boys and girls. Would the genders make any different as far as the content of the class or how it's taught? What would be the difference in the two classes?
Really, our content is not, we don't do different content for girls or for boys. We do make sure that the content is relevant to what's important to the girls or the boys in the class. So we really try to have our participants drive that content area. So if they're interested in a particular topic, we try to do some activity around that or try to bring in a role model or a mentor in that field. So it's really driven by the kids, but it's not gender-specific content.
And do you get any feedback, any negative feedback in regard to having gender classes like that?
Absolutely. We have the same. We get questioned on this just as anyone would.
Yeah.
You know, why is this still necessary? What about our sons? And the simple answer is it absolutely is still necessary. If you look at the numbers out there of women in engineering and in science, now in computer science, the numbers are still dismally low, and we need to take action to get those numbers up. And we still offer a lot of programs that are co-ed and some that are for boys only as well. So this isn't offered at the exclusion of any other group of kids.
Concern of boys falling behind when we start addressing things like this. And I can think of that's something that's not related to this in any means as far as science and such, but how the education sort of changed over the years, and we've tried to be more inclusive to girls in the class, but at the same time we've sort of bored the guys. We see that a lot with the balance of male to female teachers. There isn't as many male teachers as there used to be, and I understand there's a demand for that. Does anybody raise that issue? Does that ever become a concern, or is it just at the point where we're so far behind we got to catch up?
I think it's certainly been raised as an issue. I think they're two separate issues. I think what's happening, there are certainly issues that boys are increasingly facing in schools and in social settings that need to be addressed, and that's a separate issue. That hasn't been caused by a focus on all-girl programs to get girls into science and technology, and I think that's where it's really important to make that distinction. This focus on encouraging more girls in science and making sure that our content and the way that we're teaching and talking to parents is inclusive of girls absolutely makes it better for everyone. It's one of those things that, the program improvements that we're making to get more girls engaged are really making those improvements across the board for all of our programs. So I think there's a need to address what's happening with boys, absolutely, but it's a separate issue than...
Right. Not necessarily at the expense of the other.
That's right.
If parents out there or kids that are interested in getting involved in some of these programs, what can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. So the best source of information is our website, actua.ca, so it's actua.ca. In the Hamilton area, I would really encourage people to visit. You can go through the Actua website, or you can go right to the McMaster website and search for science camps. Venture offers a great collection of spring and summer programs that are for youth from grades 1 to 8. They're actually offering an all-girls summer camp, I think, in August this year, but they offer all kinds of programs in science, engineering, and computer science. They're engaging about 18,000 youth in the Hamilton area, so it's a significant program. Lots on offer there.
And this has to help keep them interested, boy or girl, in math and sciences.
Absolutely. I mean, we do all kinds of research, and that research definitely indicates that this is important, not only in exposing them to building skills in this area, but what we want them to recognize is how important this is in their lives. We want them to see science in their everyday. We want them to see that there's computer science and the things that are important to them, so that they're really recognizing that these are not just disciplines that, they might choose to pursue in the future, but these are basics that they need to grasp and to explore in order to be successful and to reach their full potential regardless of what they pursue in the future.
The term engineer encompasses so many different things, so many occupations, so many areas of study. How does it become so centralized where to the point where women feel it's not welcoming?
Well, I think there are a lot of stereotypes that still exist out there that engineering is just it's about something very narrow. It's building roads, it's building bridges, or it's still driving trains. We still get that answer when we ask kids about what an engineer is. And we certainly still get, if we go into a classroom and we ask kids before we do any work with them, we ask them to draw what an engineer looks like, 9 times out of 10 they will still predominantly draw men. And so those stereotypes that we think are long, long gone are still very present for kids. So that's what we need to do. We're dispelling that stereotype, and we're really engaging them in experiences that allow them to see that they can be scientists now, that they can be exploring and tinkering and building things that really get them engaged now in science and engineering, not just something that's kind of abstract in the future, but something that they can be participating in today.
Did we see the same problem with medicine years back?
I certainly think, the medicine is one of the areas where the numbers of women has reached, has equalized.
Exactly.
So I think there's no question that, the number of female doctors out there, once it hits a certain level, it just means that more kids have seen a female doctor, they know a female doctor, and that makes a huge difference. There's no question that having those types of exposure to role models matters. I mean, now medicine is an area that is highly popularized. So in images in society, you see a lot of female doctors, which isn't the case so much for science and engineering. Something that we're trying to change, but it's definitely helped to equalize those numbers.
It sort of seems the last bastion of male dominance, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of them maybe.
I'll give you that.
That might be another show.
All right, yeah, I'll give you that one there. That might be opening up another can of worms here.
That's right.
So when you go in and you do these classes, what's the response from girls? What do they find like a newfound energy, excitement in this sort of thing? Is there a path there that they didn't realize they had, or are they just tapping into the smarts they already had, they always had?
I think it's one of those things that all kids are inherently curious. They want to explore. They want to play. They want to build things. I mean, these are all of the basics of science. So getting them engaged is easy. That's the easy part of our job. It's then making them recognize that this is something that they could continue to pursue. That it's something that, from the perspective of girls, one of the things that we know is that they want to know how what they'll do in the future will impact their family, their community, the world. They want to have a positive social impact, and a lot of girls and boys don't recognize that science and engineering can be excellent paths to achieving that. So that's one of the things we talk about is the impact on society of engineering and science, and how much exists, how many problems and long-standing challenges can be solved through science and engineering. So there's always a positive response that we get from engaging kids in these types of activities. They're always eager for more. They always jump in with both feet and really want to explore. So our job is to take that excitement and passion and make sure that continues by continually offering these types of programs, by supporting what's happening in schools and supporting parents, and then of course making sure that they have those role models and mentors to look up to and to ask questions to when they get closer to making post-secondary decisions.
Now, are you worried, though, Jennifer, that, we'll have this crop of women that are girls that'll become engineers, but then they'll even get stereotyped into engineering girly things? I mean, have we got past that part of it where, just because you're an engineer, it doesn't mean, well, gee whiz, you're going to engineer the boys' things, you're going to engineer the girls' things. I mean, do we see that happen, or how do we avoid that stereotype?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think once they get into study and into the field, their contributions are across the board. I think what is important is that, and this is one of the things that we say, is we need that female perspective in engineering. We need it in science. We need females coming at these topics and coming at long-standing challenges in different ways. It's diversity of perspective, and we know that diversity is so vital for us to achieve our full innovation potential in this country. So I don't see that being a challenge.
Jennifer Flanagan's been with us, CEO of Actua, and of course Canadian University is working hard to attract kids, specifically girls, into the sciences. Jennifer, thanks for the time and insight. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you. It is 2:27. It's 900 CHML. We got news coming up at the bottom of the hour.